What began as a modern reinterpretation of a Disney classic ended in a disaster no one saw coming. Rachel Zegler, the promising star once praised by Spielberg and acclaimed by critics, is now facing the biggest blow of her career. Cinemas have started removing Snow White from their listings even before the film has completed 2 weeks in theaters. And Rachel has not stayed silent. In a viral video recorded from her room, the actress erupted in frustration, mixing tears, anger, and defiance. But what exactly happened? And why are viewers pointing to her as the one responsible for one of Disney's biggest failures in recent years? Get ready, because this is no longer a fairy tale. Rachel Zegler wanted to silence her critics. In her intimately recorded video, she tried to defend her work with a tone that was both broken and defiant. She said that despite the hate, people were still lining up to see her. She compared herself to the winged victory of Samothrace, saying that despite her cracks, she also deserved to be admired, but what was intended as an emotional message was interpreted by many as self-pitying, arrogant, and out of touch. Social media did not forgive her. Clips of the video began circulating with mockery, reactions, and parodies. What was supposed to be a moment of redemption became fuel for her detractors. And so, the character of Snow White stopped being the victim and, for many, became Disney's new villain. With a budget of $250 million, Snow White was one of Disney's biggest bets. But the film barely grossed $45 million in its opening weekend. Compared to other remakes like The Little Mermaid, which opened with $95 million, the failure was immediate and brutal. Theaters began cutting showings, changing schedules, and in some cases, removing the film entirely. All this happened while hashtags like #Snowflop and #ZeglerGate were trending worldwide. Even though Rachel tried to maintain her composure at events like the Oscars, cameras captured that Gal Gadot avoided her, the producers disappeared, and no castmate came out to defend her publicly. The industry didn't need to say it out loud. The silence said it all. As the downfall began, the internet did what it does best, bring up the past. Old clips of Rachel laughing at the 1937 classic resurfaced. She called the prince weird, mocked the love story, and confidently said that her version of Snow White wouldn't need a prince or dream of love. What many hoped would be an empowered version was seen instead as a lack of respect toward a work beloved by generations. Grandparents, parents, and Disney fans flooded social media saying they wouldn't take their kids to see a film that dismissed the original story. And amid all of this, Rachel didn't apologize. She didn't back down. Her message doubled down. The consequences weren't just online. Insiders from the film began leaking that several studios were reconsidering future projects with Rachel Zegler. Conversations cooled, marketing campaigns were paused, and her team, in desperation, began searching for ways to rebuild her image through soft interviews and redemption profiles. But so far, nothing has worked. Her once celebrated confidence is now being seen differently. Freshness is now interpreted as arrogance, her attempt to modernize a classic as a lack of vision, and her refusal to connect with the audience as a mistake that could cost her career. The actress who once promised to be the new face of Disney has now become an example of how, in the digital age, one wrong move can end a reign before it begins. After the release of Snow White, Disney expected a wave of support from new generations. But the opposite happened. The general audience, not just critics, began openly rejecting the film. On sites like Rotten Tomatoes, audience scores plummeted. Comments mentioned forced dialogue, disregard for the legacy, and a lead actress who did not represent the spirit of Snow White. Not even the polished cinematography, the investment in special effects, or Gal Gadot's presence as the evil queen were enough to save the project. The message was clear. It's not just the content that matters, but how you communicate it. And in this case, the message was perceived as condescending, even hostile. What happened with Snow White wasn't just an isolated case in Hollywood. Executives started to panic. Similar projects in development were paused. Announced remakes featuring classic characters interpreted through a controversial lens began to be reevaluated. It was even leaked that other actresses with radical stances regarding their roles were quietly removed or replaced. The industry that for years pushed rapid changes in the name of inclusion now watches cautiously, aware of the financial consequences. In the end, what drives decisions isn't ideology, it's box office performance. As the controversy grew, so did the reputational cost. Several brands that had partnered with Rachel Zegler began quietly removing promotional posts. Campaigns featuring her image stopped appearing. It was even reported that a fashion brand canceled a photo shoot with the actress at the last minute due to internal restructuring. This wasn't about censorship, it was strategy. No brand wants to be associated with one of the most talked about media failures of the year. And Rachel, far from diffusing the situation, continued posting cryptic messages that only fueled more controversy. While a few actors timidly came to Rachel's defense, most chose silence. Even celebrities who had previously praised her stopped following her on social media. Others, like Disney veterans or respected voices in the industry, made statements that, while subtle, clearly criticized the new version of the story, but the most revealing shift happened behind the scenes. Auditions for new projects began filtering out profiles with a history of public controversies. Studios weren't just looking for talent anymore, they sought discretion, humility, and a genuine connection with audiences. And even if no one says it outright, Rachel Zegler went from being the promise of a new era to a quiet warning of what must not happen again. Rachel Zegler didn't break Snow White with a bad performance or a bad movie. She did it with a stance, with an attitude, with a message. Instead of inviting dialogue, it felt like an attack on entire generations who grew up believing in happy endings. She tried to rewrite a classic without first understanding why that classic had endured for so long. And when the audience spoke up, she didn't listen.